Hey everyone, welcome back to AsArt with Nick, John, and our special guest and always expert Kyle. We're going to be reading some comments from season 2, episode 6, The Tree.
Thank you guys for commenting on the last video. It was so much fun reading all your comments. There were so many good comments and theories and stuff. We're going to do our best to pick out some earlier ones that we were able to talk about and stuff like that, have some fun with. So, by the way, we post weekly Raised by Wolves video, and we cover other fun stuff like Dune to even Lord of the Rings content. We've been talking about maybe trying to do a live stream at the end of the season where we can just be on there answering questions as real time as possible. I mean, don't know how smooth it's going to be and all that, but if you're interested in that, let us know down in the comments down below, because we're totally down to try it. We're going to jump into some comments now. John, you want to read one of your first comments?
Sure. All right. This is, work on the names here. This is Dana. The snake is a herbivore for a reason, because it has to eat the fruit from the tree. So this is a newer-ish comment, and it's something that I hadn't thought about. So they've emphasized, at the beginning of the season, Mother went out to kill this serpent, and that was a big thing. And then all of a sudden, oh, it's a herbivore, it's safe. And then all of a sudden we're fine. But then they made a point in the season, like it's still developing, or the biology is still going on. It's still developing. It has the milk in there and it's 6 months old or whatever that. And so at some point, at least early on in the season, they indicated it might be becoming something different. And so this is a fun theory that I hadn't thought of. It's like, it's a herbivore. Herbivores eat, plant life, and is it going to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge or whatever we have going here, and is that going to be what changes it? Because it definitely had a strong reaction when something was going on with the box that was holding the seed in there. So do you guys have any thoughts on that, or did that even pop into your mind, that it being a herbivore and the seed and things like that? Or
I'll admit it did not cross my mind, but it definitely makes sense in the sort of in the biblical mythos.
Eat of the fruit, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting too, to just number 7, he's not really like the other snake skull or skeletons we've seen on the planet, right? So if you remember, it's like full on crocodile or like dinosaur teeth, like serpents. You know what I mean? Like they got the full on big mouth and giant teeth and all that stuff. Where this guy just kind of has a little sucker on the bottom.
Yeah, looks like a huge giant algae eater. A little, it's making me itchy, just like it's a leech or something. It's making me itchy just thinking about it. But
a lamprey or something, kind of.
Lamprey, I don't know what that is, but I defer judgment to expert Kyle of getting it right.
7,
yes.
Okay. So,
I thought that was fun.
It's definitely in there for a reason, right? Because I feel like the only reason why they'll mention that, there has to be a payoff for it. And the payoff is now that we have a tree producing fruit, and we know this guy loves pumpkins or whatever he's eating, or we don't even know if it is fruit or whatever it is coming off the tree, but we know like they already set it up by saying that and committing to that. So now there has to be a follow through. So I'm going to be very interested to see what's going to happen, because in the trailer he kind of breaks free and he's just like, yes, I'm hungry. Maybe he's just like really hungry too, because maybe the pumpkins aren't doing enough for him.
And it would
pumpkins
just make
never
sense.
do enough.
I don't know. I'm pretty excited at Halloween. That's a good time of the year. So, but it's going to be a fun payoff, because that was the cliffhanger for season 1, was the whole serpent thing, and then that was basically what started off season 2, was the hunt for the serpent, and then it's kind of just played a backseat since then. Okay, where is it going to come around to? So I thought that was an interesting comment, because I had not thought of that at all, as far as like, hey, maybe it's going to eat of the fruit from the tree. And we know just from the, I don't know if we want to get into spoilers from the preview for the upcoming episode, but so we'll kind of just cut it off there.
I want to add is, we know Mother tried messing with controlling a dead bird, right? With like a microchip and stuff.
That's right.
Do we know if she ever implanted number 7 with a microchip?
Yeah, we have no idea what came of that, because it's never been referenced again.
I feel like it's gonna come around though. Like I feel like whatever's happening, she's gonna try to control the situation, and maybe one of the ways by of controlling is like controlling the biggest creature on the planet. So we'll see. Exciting.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
All right. So Ronald Baker says Lucius is a true believer. He knows this religion and the prophecy. When he says it's a warning, I believe he knows a sacrifice is required to grow the tree, or was able to fully understand the prophecy after seeing the card. Remember, Marcus and Sue, Mary, are atheists and don't know the prophecy details. Paul foreshadowed that Sue had to prove her faith. Paul said, Soul asks something of atheists before he helps them. Sue said, no, I wasn't asked for anything. Paul then said, it must be something else then.
Yeah. So
I
a lot
specifically
to unpack
remember
here.
this, yeah.
Yes. So there's a lot to unpack here. And this was brought up because I debunked my own theory, because I was like, what if Marcus knew what was on the card, and when Sue was like, oh, we have to plant the seeds, in his mind's like, oh, I have my sacrifice, because I thought maybe he read the card because he was acting weird and stuff, but then it was totally debunked. I'm like, he would need a computer, he only had the cage right up to read it, and it's just like, all the things started going through my head. I'm like, this isn't looking too good, Nick. But so like me and John talked about this in the last video, but I thought this was very interesting here, because he is a true believer and he knows the scriptures and stuff like that, where maybe he was able to not read the card, maybe like cipher it, or like figure out the gist of like something, has to be sacrificed in order for this to grow off of symbols and stuff like that. And I just thought this was a really good explanation to me being confused by that whole thing.
In conclusion, Nick was confused. That's
well, like literally once the episode's done, I stop and I message John and we film this thing. So it's like, I'm like processing while like the whole screen's loading up for us to chat. So.
Yeah, that was definitely a confusing moment. I think you and I talked about that in the episodes. Like, does he have like some type of card reader? Does he have like a USB, like a weird reader for that type of stuff? Or, zip drive. He always goes to that. Nick's all about zip drives and Wi-Fi extenders on this channel. But I was confused about that. But that is a good point, that like, hey, this is probably like reference to regular scripture stuff, to where if, any of us that are any other type of, theology or religion or mythology, we see an image relating to something we're familiar with, we might have a general idea on what it's about. And while he got a lot from what almost looked like a deck card, where like, oh, this is a Joker card, he got that from that it was a warning. But it would make sense that he would know more about it than Marcus or Sue or anybody else would, because he's obviously like was said, a true believer of this. So
maybe I'm misremembering it, so you guys check me on this, but I think that it's not that Soul asked her of something, but I think that Soul did have her pay a price. Right. So she said, like, I guess Soul did fulfill her request to save Paul and give her that vision of the solution. But perhaps her payment for help from Soul would be to become the tree. Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
Right. So maybe, but that's something else then. I don't know. Maybe that's the latent, prophetic part of Soul. I don't know.
Or it's maybe almost the idea where you have to be willing to sacrifice yourself, maybe, or the idea of like
right.
It's like she committed. She's like, all right, you did your part, and now I'm going to do my part, kind of thing.
Yeah, a test of faith, a sacrifice.
Yes.
Yeah.
John, you want to read your next one?
Sure. Well, let's see. Spectator 59 says, sounds like you might have missed seeing the mermaid's 4 breasts when she took the baby. I definitely wanted to block that out. Also, Apollo's already an orphan since Sue and Marcus killed his real parents. The baby isn't an orphan yet, at least while Tempest is still alive. So this is kind of correlating to what we were talking about when we were talking about episode 6, where, is this baby going to be the orphan prophet, whatever? And again, we're assuming this prophecy has some merit to it as far as what this show is going to actually see come to pass. But technically, this little baby infant isn't an orphan yet. But I keep forgetting, and Sue, one of her last words to any human before she became a tree was saying to Paul, he goes, oh, sing me that lullaby. And she goes, Paul, that wasn't me. So, as storytellers, they did remind us like, hey, I'm not really your mom, trying to remind us that like, hey, his parents aren't really alive. So that is an interesting point to mention, that, Paul is, the real orphan. And I guess you could say that Campion's an orphan too, but he was just kind of, an orphan is like, I don't know, like you've lost your parents. I don't know how you would categorize
lost your parents
him.
or your parents just don't want you, right?
Yeah, but he was just kind of born in unique circumstances. So I don't know if he'd even qualify as an orphan. I don't know. But
technically, mother and father is his father, right?
Yeah.
So
I guess the only real orphan we do have Marcus, I guess. I don't know.
Remember that. So this might just be more of a general I forget sorry, guys.
That's fine.
This might be something indicative of prophecy, but remember, like, prophecy is tricky like that, right? So when the prophecy says orphan, it doesn't necessarily someone. It could mean someone that lost both their parents, or someone who is not of parents, right? Was born in other circumstances, right? But to the older prophetic language, that would count as an orphan, right? On account of technicality, in a way.
Yeah.
It's like we're getting back to Game of Thrones here.
Right.
Like, well, technically the prophecy doesn't say this, and it says this in other languages. It's like, the fun theories going down the rabbit hole.
I also like how they've been portraying the prophecy with the orphans specifically, because you see people grasping at the meaning, right? Like, oh, it must be you, right? Or it must be me, right? Which is, very almost unique to prophecy, right? It's like, oh, this thing must mean this, right? Because it says, right?
And that is a true to life thing that's happened a lot throughout history. You have some type of religious or prophecy of some sort like that, and people try and either claim it or try and make sense of it, and it must be this, must be that, that's this, that's. I mean, I've seen that happen even in my lifetime in present times. People kind of doing things like that. We've all seen that. So it's neat that we're seeing our real modern day lives, kind of mimicked and kind of reflected in this show.
It's natural for humans to want to make connections. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because the prophecy we got about the tree, right? If you plant the tree and you eat the fruit. So technically that was very straightforward.
Yes.
So like that part of the prophecy was very straightforward. Like we're like, is it really a seed? Is it data? Like, what is this thing? It's like, no, it's a tree. Okay.
Like,
it's
right,
fruit. Okay. If you eat the fruit. Okay. Now what's going to happen with, okay. They're very, very, very literal about their scripture here.
Also remember that, they planted the tree, but they planted the tree with a human body, right? Like, I mean, think about that. That's one hell of a thing they missed, right? Or like that the prophecy didn't mention, right? Is like,
I guess you're right.
She, like, Mary just touched it, right? And it, like, through osmosis went into her skin, like, and then she was compelled to dig. Like, that's like I've noticed there's whatever Soul's technology is, or whatever alien technology, this technological stuff, like, once it interacts with a living being of some kind, it reacts, right? And it manifests in these weird ways. Same thing to like how people like Paul was slowly becoming a snake, right? It was evolving, it was changing his DNA, right? And we saw it with Mary. She became the tree. She's a cool tree thing now with like pulsing veins. And
she's a dryad.
Yes, thank you, John. A dryad.
This is a little side thing, and you can cut this out if you want, though. But Nick, this completely
you started like that.
Well, I mean, this completely reminded me. I don't know if you guys have ever played. This reminded me of, I think it was on Planet Earth, but the guys at Naughty Dog that made the game The Last of Us used this idea from Planet Earth for the whole basis of the game The Last of Us. And this thing, there's a section on Planet Earth where these ants would get infected by this fungus, and other ants in the colony would recognize if an ant was infected, and it would literally infect their brain, and these ants would be compelled, to where they could not help it, to climb as high as they could up a tree or whatever, and the other ants would ostracize them from the site to get away, to stop the infection. But these ants would keep climbing up until literally it burst out of their head, this fungus, and the fungus would grow out of their heads and out of the carcass of like the body. And it's just, it's kind of the same idea here. Like this went inside of her and then compelled her where she could not help it, like had to dig, and then it just kind of burst out of her. And so it's kind of funny. That's a far reach there, but at the same time, it's like, wow, that actually is kind of mimicked in real life a little bit. And again, that makes me itch all over, like fungus. Like,
no, that's
anyway.
That's a great observation.
Really
in fact, I dare say we're probably going to keep that. You know?
Yeah, I liked it.
History Eraser button says the voice told Campion to kill himself. So the voice sees Campion as a threat. So if Campion, father, mother, grandmother versus the voice, I believe, I agree that grandma had the creature get the baby. So that I'm like that last sentence, I'm not so sure. I'm sorry, History Eraser button, but I just
Well, no, he's actually agreeing with me on that one. So
Oh, what? Whoa, Nick, what are you doing?
I have to admit, I had completely missed that when grandmother and father were talking, that there was the little mer person on the screen. And if Nick hadn't put that in the overlay in the episode, when he put that up, I said, I completely missed that. I didn't realize that. So that is part of grandmother's whole thing. I did not realize that was
then
there.
also, when that happened too, she asked how many humans were on the planet, and he said 100 and whatever, and he's like, oh, and there's one more, and then she shuts off right after he says there, and there's one coming.
There's one about to be.
And then remember
one
when
about to be born,
remember when she reacted with the baby on her face when the baby entered the room. So
right.
Anyways, I wanted to talk about the first part.
Oh yeah, of course.
Where, like, I like the idea where like Campion is a threat, right? Like there's something literally like the voice. Like remember when he was in the room, and that the creature was dangling. This is all season 1 stuff, and the voice was telling him to kill himself. So like I know this is going back all the way to season 1. I know, but it's very interesting because like he's heard the voice. Or he's heard a voice talk, and he also has seen the visions. So we've had people on one. The only other person I think that has seen visions and heard a voice is Mary or Sue, or Mary Sue. We want to just combine the names. But so I just thought that was very interesting because he definitely has a connection to grandmother, and we don't know yet. I mean, this is all just more questions. I don't have answers. I just really like the comment, but we know that the voice is there, and now grandmother's there, and it's like they're teasing us with not telling us more about grandmother. I feel like grandmother has a wealth of information that they're just not tapping into yet, and I don't even know if we'll even get a portion of it by the end of the season. But I really like that idea because I have 2
more.
Oh boy,
I know.
Okay.
They better give us a couple answers. Please just give us like one answer. Do you have another
They're
one?
giving
John?
us answers, but when they give us an answer, they're asking about 3 more questions each time, which is like, So yeah, it's been this is not so much a question as a statement, but it made me laugh pretty hard. So Eliza Casanovas, that's an awesome name. Casanovas. Eliza Casanova says, I think that this show's ending will be something related to the Twilight Zone. And just made me laugh because this show is so funky, off the wall crazy that I'm almost curious if there's any way, and we don't have to go into depth on this, but I'm almost curious if there's any way they can wrap this show up however many seasons down the road that it's going to be a wonderfully, they don't have to answer all the questions, but is it going to be something that we actually are going to be like, you know what, that was satisfying. Like we got enough answers to where this is rounded out well enough, but it's, satisfying. I'm almost curious. This seems like the type of, they used to do books, like serial chapters they would publish, I think, in papers and magazines and stuff. And they would, the authors would be paid by the word, and they would keep it going basically as long as they could. And it would become extremely wordy. And, they would go on longer than they would need to. And obviously, in modern day, the thing that sometimes stops shows is they just stop getting renewed, for seasons. And so my fear sometimes with stuff like this is so intriguing, but at some point, does the audience stop being intrigued by this? And then we just stop getting seasons. So I'm hoping they have an arc already thought out for this. Because, Ridley Scott isn't writing all the stories for this, but he's obviously involved in this. And he's still wanting to do more and more and more alien movies in the the Prometheus alien world, but he keeps taking them in weird different directions, and we don't know at this point. The last one, Alien Covenant, did not do well, and so we don't know if we're getting any more movies, even though he said he wanted to do like 3 more. So it's like, great, that was supposed to lead us into about 3 more movies, and now we might not get any more. So I'm like, don't do that with Raised by Wolves 2. You know, I don't want that to end like that. But yeah, I just thought I laughed when I read this comment by Eliza that it's just like, yeah, this is getting crazy Twilight Zone, you know, funky. But
John
this
likes
type
funky.
of stuff is kind of Twilight Zone. Yeah, I do like funky.
Do you have another comment?
The other one that I have was more along the same thing, but I'll read it. So it's Tywin Lannister. Tywin Lannister says, I had a thought. Marcus says to Cleaver before leaving the tarantula to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge or something to that effect. How this is going to play into later plot points and reveals is going to be interesting. And I can't remember if he said to eat the fruit of the tree to more than one person, but I remember someone he was talking to that was really messed up in the head that I think they had completely like almost reconditioned, you know, the colony had reconditioned them through the, you know, the computer before it was kind of disconnected and things like that. I'm curious what's going to happen when they eat that fruit. Is it going to give them a clean slate? Is it almost going to program them in some way? I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. I mean, it's with the tree being there and we know it's dropping fruit. We're going to assume that people are going to eat that. And we've seen Marcus take a bite. But do you guys have any guesses?
I do.
What funk is going to happen? Oh, here we go. This is going to be fun.
It's only an inkling, right? So obviously, because there are already just to talk about the effect it's going to have on the general populace, right? We already know there's divisions in belief and stuff, right? Among people with the Mithraics and the atheists. This tree, there's going to be people who have eaten of the fruit and people who refuse to eat the fruit. I know it's going to cause a schism in some way. Even amongst like atheists, right? Now with Marcus eating the fruit, first off, when he opened up the fruit, it looked like a brain, right? Like the fruit, the actual like pulpy center, right? Delicious. After he took the bite, we saw it dawn on him that Sue was the tree. So again, taking from biblical mythology, he has eaten of the tree of knowledge. We can assume. This is me assuming, right? He's eaten of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and it has been revealed to his eyes are now open, right? And he's revealed he can now understand. Oh, that's like the tree is Sue, and that's one of the that's a part of the new sight that Marcus will now have by eating the fruit, and others may have too, right?
And so, do you think it's more soul related knowledge as far as, you know, that side of the coin, or do you think it's just knowledge? I mean, obviously we're completely guessing, we have no answers, but it did seem to me as soon as he ate that is when he realized he saw this pulsing through the tree, and it's almost like he realized that was Sue. But I'm curious what that knowledge is going to be. I mean, it seemed like Marcus had an idea of what it was going to be, but he was just spouting. I mean, you know, he kind of
nonsense,
is
basically
playing off this prophet angle to a lot of people, trying to keep his following and things like that too.
I mean, we can go in really philosophically about you know, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because I mean, if we think about it, Adam and Eve in the biblical sense didn't even know what good and evil was. The concept wasn't even prevalent in their head. They didn't understand what that even meant until they ate of it. Yeah. Similarly to Marcus, like he knows that there's this fruit that you eat of it, something's going to happen, or you're just going to eat it, right? But if they're guessing at what's going to happen, if anything, they have no clue, right? Yeah. And I think it's going to be something that might even surprise us.
Yeah, but if they go the biblical route, does that mean that they get kicked out of this Garden of Eden?
Boy, what a Garden of Eden it is right now, I guess, because it's
the only place on the planet with life, right?
That's true. Yeah,
and an acid ocean, but and I was also going to say, do you think the fruit is affected because Sue is a part of it? Because remember, she wasn't like a full believer; she was like an atheist still. I mean, at the end, she was kind of leaning towards the faith aspect, but her whole life and backing has been atheism, basically, right? So by the tree blending and mixing with her, is she still a part of the tree in any way, shape, and form, or was she just used as fuel to do the miracle grow to have it pop out of the ground?
That is a very good question, Nick, and I hope who knows, maybe we'll get some hints at that maybe she's still, like, I don't know, like maybe they'll get a sense that she's still there. There's a part of her still there, or maybe a part of her personality or like energy or whatever is
Should we even say soul?
Ooh.
Anyways, that's like jumping into more deeper theory stuff. We got one more comment to get through. We don't want to say more because we don't know what's going to happen. This may be revealed to us in the next episode or in season 5. So we don't know, but hopefully we'll get something. Gosh. Okay. What do you think? Next comment, John, or do you want to keep going?
I actually have one that I saw that I kind of interested in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, from the mind of Michael Malone, he says, "Remember when Campion was saying how grandmother could help create cities and new worlds or whatever? I don't know if this is a long shot, but if you remember back to season 1, Paul was on the ship and he was sitting on the floor creating a city, and the city he was creating was the same exact shiny gold color that grandmother was. I wonder if this has anything to do with the anything, or has this show made me batshit?"
It's made us
Michael.
all that, so yeah.
It's making me a little bit of that for sure. So this is one of those details. Like, this caught my attention just because it's one of those details that I had forgotten about, right? Paul making that sort of golden city, and that Campion mentioning that grandmother could help create cities, a new world.
We did see with Mother, right, when the sunlight hit her, life was able to grow on her skeleton.
Yes.
Right? So we know stuff can come to life and grow with her, and we also know she's built the same way as Mother. But where the weapons are, there's something else there which they don't quite understand. And it's almost interesting, like when they're about to battle off, right? Like Mother has this very offensive pose where it's like, and then grandmother has like her hands down, like at almost like a peaceful, like solution where we have like, destruction and life almost. And it's and maybe it's built to counteract each other too. So
it's like the gold is indicative of creation, more creative aspects perhaps, and then because Mother is almost like bronzed, which is interesting. And like also remember, grandmother is like a much older model, right? So this might even be like, did they say that she's outright just pure Mithraic? Like she's actually Mithraic technology, or was she built by humans?
She was speaking old Mithraic. Remember the language? And Father didn't understand it, but Mother was able to understand it and translate it.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, and there was a lot of other crazy stuff too, like the whole idea of Mother. Oh, you know what? This would be perfect, Kyle. We're gonna jump into a comment. We can end it on this. We're gonna jump into this, and we can end it here because this is very interesting.
Okay, so Jackie Katz asks us, has anyone thought about Mother is like Lilith from Genesis and grandmother is Eve? Father made her from his fuel blood. Anyone else have this idea?
So I had to look this up just so I can reply back to you when I did. But Kyle understands it.
Well,
he understands it more than me because I just did a quick little Google search. But Kyle, he's kind of built on this. So Kyle's going to explain this, and then we'll probably close it out after this kind of thing.
Okay. Well, so that's an interesting statement because we have a bit of a dilemma here, because what Jackie is suggesting is that if grandmother is Eve and mother is Lilith, right, then because we're assuming the grandmother came before mother, right, given their chronology.
Yes, but we need to explain who Lilith is.
No, I know, but I'm setting up the dilemma, right?
Sorry, yes.
Gosh, Nick, patience.
So that's the thing. So that would be that mother came after grandmother. However, what Jackie's proposing is that grandmother is actually Eve and mother is Lilith. Now, in biblical mythology, Lilith is actually the first female counterpart to Adam, right? And essentially she was a mistake because she ended up being the original she demon, essentially, and was banished out of Eden by God, and then God made Eve, the second feminine version, out of Adam's ribcage, right? So Lilith came first, and then Eve came second. But in this theory, it's switched, right? The older version is actually more of the Eve, right, and the second iteration is more of the Lilith, right, a bringer of evil. Right? So
it also makes sense though too, because grandmother was very set on she was connected to father.
Yes. Right.
Which would have been Adam and Eve.
That's true.
If we're going off this comment here, you know what I mean? Like that would be Adam and Eve, right? So if she's made from him, but we don't know what's up with father yet. I feel like now there's so much unraveled mystery behind father. Like, I'm like, what is going to happen? Like, does he have dormant eyes? I think there was a comment in a couple of videos ago saying like maybe father's eyes are the same as mother's, but they're backups just in case mother's eyes got destroyed. Maybe they sent him. There was like all these other things with comments like maybe he has strong eyes or other powers that we just don't know of, but he's programmed to think he's a certain way because he's like the backup plan or something like that. But anyways, I just thought this was very interesting.
No, yeah, it is. Like, and there's also just another thing that just occurred to me is that mother, if we're assuming mother is playing the part of Lilith here, she's also the one that gestated and gave birth to the serpent. And if the serpent is anything similar to biblical stuff, then the serpent's supposed to be the tempter. Right? So I don't know. I mean, that's interesting.
This one's not doing a great job tempting anyone, though.
That's true.
Maybe Campion, because Campion keeps going back.
Yeah.
Interact with the snake.
Remember, the serpent only has to tempt one person. If we think about it that way, right?
Unless Marcus is the serpent now.
Maybe.
Because he's the one that's going to be forcing the fruit upon people, probably. So maybe he's not the serpent, but maybe he's Eve. Because doesn't Eve, after she takes part of the fruit, she offers it to Adam?
Yes.
Okay. Anyways, just to put it there, any final thoughts from any of you guys before we close out this video? It's getting kind of long with the runtime. We don't want to be here for too late tonight.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, I like, even if father doesn't have any extra powers or anything, I just like the whole idea that he's a little bit more pure going into this, and his interesting aspects are him just almost developing human-like qualities. And if he doesn't have any eyes or extra special things about, if his whole winning that fight and him being a more than just a generic unit was them just telling that so Campion doesn't worry about him, like they made a joke about early on in the season, like I'd be perfectly fine with that, because my interest in him as a character isn't really defined by him being a necromancer like a mother or anything like that. His just character, he's almost more the caregiver than mother is at this point. He's the one that's still just, hey, I just want to make sure they're okay, more than I'm going to go wreck house if, people don't pay attention, So yeah, it's just interesting. Like, people want him to have these special qualities, but I think like he's a very fascinating character even without any of that stuff. So it's just it's fun though to see how it turns out, though.
Probably one of my favorite characters of the series. Yeah, I really enjoyed father's character, and I think the actor is doing such a great job. I mean, I think a lot of the actors in this is doing a fantastic job too in the series. I mean, kudos. I'm eating the fruit. Yeah. I'm totally in for the theory. So I'm going deep.
I gotta say, I am so sorry. I forgot. I don't have her name up here, but
who? What character?
The one who gave birth to the baby last episode.
Oh,
Tempest.
Tempest, yeah. The actress who played Tempest. Wow, that was a performance. Like when she was the whole birth sequence, like where she's like stumbling on the rocks, like starting to have her contract, like that was intense. Like I was like enraptured. But yeah.
Nice, John. You want to close this out? That's a great way to end it.
All right, guys, let us know down below the comments that we read if you have thoughts on them. Obviously, we're going to ramble on and have our thoughts on them. We'd love to hear yours as well. If there's other comments that you have or that you read in the other episode review or in this. Like, let us know down below. We love this conversation with everything Raised by Wolves. Check out AsArt Dead Space for all the audio and video links. Check out Pecos with a 0 for Kyle's awesome Instagram artwork. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next AsArt. Look down the nose.